More memories are made when you're there for live NFL action. And when you need tickets, Ticketmaster's got you covered. As the official marketplace of the NFL, Ticketmaster gives you more ways to find your perfect seat. Their interactive seat map gives you 360-degree previews of your section to make sure you have the best view of those pivotal plays. And if your plans change, Ticketmaster gives you more flexibility to sell or transfer your tickets. Plus, mobile tickets make getting in on game day a breeze. And you can even customize your Ticketmaster app to rep your team's colors. Find tickets today at Ticketmaster.com/NFL.
Food for thought, NFL, right here on RotoGrinders, week 3, just about in the books, and right on cue, I'm getting an ESPN push notification. The news, the drama, it never stops on and off the field. Electric week 3. I'm here with the man, Will Priester, Chief Justice 06. What's going on, my good friend? Welcome back to Food for Thought.
Yes, sir, absolutely. This is a good week to come on and talk about some football. As we just saw, I feel like this was probably that 1 week. There's always 1 week in the NFL where things are off. It's a topsy-turvy week. Everything goes against what you expect. I don't think anything this week went exactly how we thought it would go. Outside of Chargers, Vikings, everybody expected that game to be somewhat of an explosion, right? And for about a half of football it was. But generally speaking, I think we just saw some interesting outcomes in these football games. Let me just say that. Very interesting outcomes. Elephant in the room. I think the whole league is the elephant in the room this week outside of a handful of games. So I'm going to just go ahead and let you kick us off, Luuch. Elephant in the room. Where do you want to start this week? Because I've got tons to say about everything. So I'm really going to try to temper my thoughts and be very concise here.
Now let's rip the Band-Aid right off. 70 points. We're going to start there.
Yeah.
70 points. And I'll just say this, that, just mixing in some personal stuff here. My girlfriend has watched more college football and NFL football than she probably ever did before she met me. So we throw some college games on and she's thinking, wow, 70-0, 75-7. Are these real scores? What is happening in these college games? And I said last week, yeah, it never happens in the NFL. You never see 70 points in the NFL. Well, was I a liar? And last week we recorded, and I came on here and I said, I think Denver's the most overrated defensive unit out of either side of the ball in the league, right? Offense, defense, that gives you over 60 units in what they do. And no, I thought Miami had 30 plus potential. They more than doubled it. Unreal. I personally ended up making 4 hand builds, and we record so early in the week that so much changes. I had Tyreek in 2 of them. I had Russell Wilson, Judy with a Tyreek run back in one of my teams. One of my other teams was a Desmond Ridder build, which didn't work out, but I had Tyreek and Cortland Sutton, who had a touchdown, had a second one called back. But you alluded to it when we were talking a little bit off the air. Denver just couldn't hang whatsoever. It wasn't like it was 70-30. I mean, they got absolutely mollywopped here. So holy crap, Chief. We got to start with the big one here. And just there's so many more narratives and things that come out to the media afterwards. I just want to throw this at you that Mike McDaniel said the players were in favor of taking a knee and not going for the record. And also, something that I completely forgot about is Denver refused to interview him as a head coach a couple of years ago. And stemming back even further, he was the ball boy for the Broncos years ago. So he was kind of running it up. I mean, hell, Mike White was throwing dimes to Robbie Anderson. I mean, they pulled the starters, and, you're not just going to tell your third stringers to go out there and just roll over. And Mike White was unleashed. His whole team was absolutely cruising. We haven't seen anything like this in a very long time.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to start from the game. I'm going to start from that point, and let's just work our way backwards since you brought it up. As an aside, we're talking about Miami. How how would the Jets feel if they had Mike White back in that stadium right now? Okay, story for another day. Mike White comes out, throws a touchdown. Devin Achan, I don't want to mess up the pronunciation, and I typically pronounce names really well. We're just going to Akani. I think that's how they pronounce it. But Mr. Devin, for all intents and purposes, listen. He comes out at the end of the game, runs a 60, 70-yard touchdown. And he was already involved earlier in the game as well. This was just a good old-fashioned butt kicking by the Dolphins without their second-best wide receiver in Jalen Waddle. I don't want to overlook that. I don't want to bury that lead. Jalen Waddle did not play in this game. Mostert stepped up. Tyreek got going very early. We saw Tua just continue to be masterful. They were at home, and it was incredible. And I think that's what I'm going to say. This was an incredible performance by the Dolphins. Let me say this. The Broncos definitely should have scored more points. Cortland Sutton held his team back from several touchdowns, or at least field goals, because of the fumbles. Russell Wilson still threw for over 300 yards in this game. So it's not like they had trouble. The Broncos actually did not have trouble moving the ball. They just couldn't keep up. So they look, Luuch. I mean, it's 7, it's 14, it's 21, it's 20. And the points just kept piling on and piling on and piling on. And Denver just did not have enough to keep up. And I just got to give kudos to the Dolphins. This was an incredible performance by them. And this week they get to go to Buffalo. We're going to find out a whole lot about this team this week. If they come out of Buffalo with a win in any fashion, but if they win this game by more than 10 points, I think the Dolphins are going to be looking like a real Super Bowl contender here.
Yeah, and Raheem Mostert just single-handedly winning people money and fantasy matchups this week. And just you saw some fantastic play design as well. So when you have guys that are even marginally talented with great play design, you're going to see that Tua no-look shovel pass on the highlight reel all season.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's mega creativity there. And, Mike McDaniel is behind a lot of it. And, he's fairly young. He's flashy. He's a little bit cocky. He has a really cool story and one you have to respect. And I did a lot of Mike McDaniel research, and he battled some alcohol addiction and things like that when he was with the Falcons organization, or after he got fired with a couple jobs. And, you got to give the guy credit, and good for him for thriving. And he's got a little bit of that swagger, and the team has responded to it. And, of course, when he took over and you saw him in the media a couple of years ago, and you could tell things were just going to be a little unorthodox, but clearly he hit the home run when he interviewed with the Dolphins. And he's the kind of guy who seemed to, been through it all on and off the field, and he's worked his way up. And he just, obviously I don't know him, but he seems like the kind of guy to brush off, whatever the media says, and seems like he can deal with the spotlight, and it will very well be on them in about 6 days when Miami and Buffalo square off. And just tying that in with, not like it's a huge storyline, but Buffalo has more than righted the ship after the week 1 debacle against the Jets. I mean, Washington, with Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy, who should be a head coach somewhere in the league by now, came in with a world of momentum, probably the most momentum that team has had as an organization in years. And the Bills just crushed them. The Bills have more than rated the ship. So you have arguably the two best teams in the AFC in terms of momentum right now, arguably. And say what you want about the Chiefs, which is probably going to be our next stop on the train. I'm excited for that one. In our look ahead, we'll get a little bit more into that one. But I got to be honest, as soon as I heard Waddle was out, I thought, Tyreek's either going for 50 or 250 in this one, because Denver's either going to figure out how to shift all the coverage. It didn't matter. The play design was so good.
Scored too many points. He would have. I mean, he had 6 for 150 and a touchdown. Like, trust me, if the game was anything if this game, Luuch, somehow was around 35-20, and Miami had to keep playing, and then it somehow was, 42-28, and Miami has to keep playing, and then if it's somehow, 53-42, and this offense would have went for over 1,000 yards, easy. But they had to throttle it down. Let me say this, Luuch, and I'm going to shift gears here. I'm going to talk about some other teams. I'm not putting a bow in this, but so if you want to revisit Miami, please, by all means, please revisit. I just want to talk about the league as a whole yesterday. I'm not going to give anything specific yet. I just want to talk about the league as a whole. Let me just say that I think almost every team that you expected to win yesterday did not win on yesterday's slate. We actually, Luuch, we saw a fair amount of blowouts, right? We had a fair amount of blowouts considering this was the NFL. And not only did we have a lot of blowouts, Luuch, teams that we thought were bona fide Super Bowl possibly contenders, conference contenders, they pretty much all lost. Almost every team that we felt like was, in a position to really start to get some separation in their division, they lost. What a week for the NFL. What a week for the teams that were behind these teams, where we were expecting some of these teams to be 3-0. They're 2-1 now, Luuch. So now you've got a team that is in the division that's 1-2 that's saying, well, wait a minute. And I know it's just one game, but there's a big difference between 3-0 and 2-1 and 3-0 and 1-2. Now, so you got teams that are 1-2 that have a little bit of life in the division with teams that are 2-1. This is a very interesting week.
So AFC South, two teams that we spent a lot of time on, Cleveland and Tennessee.
And I've been very high on the Browns this season. Starting out, I was very high. I was very high on Deshaun Watson showing improvement this season. And they beat Tennessee 27-3. And Deshaun Watson was probably about as close to Deshaun Watson as we've seen since Houston. Almost 300 yards, big-time performance between him and Amari Cooper. If Deshaun Watson is going to steadily improve, they're going to be a problem in this division when Cincinnati's struggling. I wasn't going to talk about it right now, but Baltimore lost yesterday to the Colts.
Oh, we're going to get there, too.
Yeah, the Steelers won yesterday, but they're still not there. The Browns, without Nick Chubb, Tennessee is not a slouch team. This could be sneakily the best team in the division. This is how I felt all season, even though they lost last week.
The NFL is such a matchup-based league, and what I should say, more of a strength versus weakness league. If there's one area you can really take advantage of against the other team's weakness, then it's a wrap. And Tennessee, I'm not backpedaling on the Titans. I still think they are good enough to win the AFC South.
Have we not said this? Jaguars looking like frauds? We'll get back to that. We'll get back to that.
It's the NFL, and I think more credit has to go to DeMeco Ryans than maybe calling the Jags frauds. But we'll get there. We'll knock on that door next. Tennessee, they're without Peter Skoronski, who already graded out as their best lineman after the first week. He had appendicitis and he's missed 2 weeks. One more wrench in there for the Titans O-line. The Browns arguably have the best defensive line in football, and anytime they are going to square off with an offensive line that has some patchwork or needs help, they should dominate that game. That's exactly what happened against Tennessee. This was a 13-3 ball game before half. Tennessee had ball in hand with 20 seconds left. The Tennessee was driving down the field before halftime.
Just massive meltdown, sacks, penalties.
Time ran out. Couldn't even get a field goal on the board. They were getting the ball after halftime, and that's where the momentum was lost. That game could have very well been 13-10 at half. Yeah. It wasn't. And minuscule room for error in the NFL. And on top of that, the massive advantage is to Cleveland. And we saw the same deal last week. And maybe I'll get crap for this, but the Browns' defense significantly outplayed the Steelers' offensive line as well. And probably should have, they probably should have won that football game against Pittsburgh, but it's the NFL and there's variance and there's mistakes.
Yeah.
And there's splash plays.
And then a fumble return for a touchdown. And lo and behold,
that's why we love it.
Yeah.
If that game's played, 20 times, the Browns probably win at 18, right? With those scenarios.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And that's why we love this so much, man.
Yeah.
So Cleveland's front seven has been dominant. Tennessee will hang in there against teams that don't have elite front sevens. And nobody in the AFC South has showed me that they just have a Browns-like front seven. So I think that AFC South is still up for grabs. Cleveland, we knew what Tennessee does. They held Cleveland under 3 yards to carry, made Deshaun Watson pass the ball, right? Like they're going to funnel the run, make these pass every game.
But
if the quarterback gets it done, it doesn't matter how little yards you hold the opposing running backs to. Cleveland did the same thing to Tennessee, and Ryan Tannehill just couldn't make plays. And I'm not saying it's all his fault because yesterday left tackle Andre Dillard allowed 7 pressures and 3 sacks, and he's on pace for 91 pressures and 34 sacks allowed this season. And that's probably not going to cut it when you have an immobile quarterback, and that's just the way it was. So, Tennessee 1-2 after the big win against the Chargers, whose front seven has been pretty bad. There's no pressure with these big names on paper. I don't know what the numbers were yesterday, but before yesterday, Khalil Mack had a 0% pass rush win rate entering Sunday, which is ridiculous. So, I think the Browns are definitely trending in the right direction, and that defense will travel. And good for them, good for Kevin Stefanski. Tennessee 1-2 after the controversial loss to the Saints. Big win against the Chargers. Absolutely, terrible offensive line performance against Cleveland. So a roller coaster ride there. And I'll let you add to that, but I will segue into hello, CJ Stroud in Houston. And, are we ready to panic in Jacksonville? I mean, we saw 2 straight struggles, heavy struggles for Jacksonville. After the Calvin Ridley honeymoon, he's been pretty much uninvolved, or they just haven't been able to get him the football.
The targets are there. The catches aren't. I mean, I think he had 8 targets yesterday.
But it's not about Calvin Ridley. I'm just, stating the facts here.
Yeah.
Kudos to them for hanging in with Kansas City in week 2, who really struggled in that game as well. That was just a dogfight game environment. But this one really blew me away a little bit. So, hey, I'm not ready to panic on the Jags. I just don't think they're this darling juggernaut that the media was pumping up since they choked away their game in the playoffs last season. I mean, I don't know. I think that AFC South is totally up for grabs now.
It's wide open.
And big shout out to DeMeco Ryans. Talk to me about that.
Absolutely. I think DeMeco Ryans deserves a ton of credit here. Like, we've talked about this, but like the Texans head coaching job is almost like where head coaches go to die. Whether you're a first-year head coach, a 50th-year head coach, it's kind of like you just take this job so you can actually have it on your resume, right? But you won't be here in 2 or 3 years. This team's going to stink. You're not going to be productive, and you'll be out of there. They'll be on to the next big thing. But we have to remember, DeMeco Ryans isn't an offensive head coach. He's a defensive head coach. And, so when I see Texans 37, Jaguars 17, I see a defensive coach that's got defensive principles. I saw that defense yesterday. They were flying around. This is a defensive coach that has defensive principles that he wants to stick to, Luuch. And if this team can continue to play well, then I think we're going to see that during the season. So let's look at this. Let's look at this. So in week 1, they played the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore scored 25 points. but they struggled to score those 25 points, Luuch. I was, around for that game. They played the Colts in a 31-20 game. Colts scored 31. Anthony Richardson, obviously, probably the greatest athlete out of that drafted quarterback. I'm not saying the best quarterback. I'm saying probably the best athletic, the most athletic quarterback in that draft. Kind of got him ahead early with 2 rushing touchdowns. Gardner Minshew comes in, more experience, leads him to the promised land. But then we get to the Jaguars, and it's 37-17. But the one thing that's been constant in these games is C.J. Stroud. So we saw what I feel like this week, Luuch. I feel like we saw complimentary football. We saw a great an offense that was able to put up points and a defense that was able to hold their own. And if they can continue to do this, they get the Steelers, they get the Falcons, they get the Saints, they get the Panthers, but these are all games to me that they could win. I'm not saying they're going to win. Steelers is winnable. Falcons is winnable. Saints is going to be winnable, although that's probably going to be the best defense they see out of this whole ordeal. Texans is winnable. Buccaneers is winnable. Bengals is winnable. Cardinals, winnable. Already beat Jacksonville. Then they play the Broncos. Then they play the Jets. Luuch, I'm not trying to crown the Texans division champions. But what I am saying is if they continue to play complimentary football, they've got a shot at a massive season turnaround. And I don't think anybody would be expecting that by the time we hit week 17.
They have some really young weapons, and I didn't expect Tank Dell's ascension to be so fast. But in terms of fantasy football, CJ Stroud wants to get the ball to the receivers. Dalton Schultz has been kind of lost in the sauce. We saw Nico Collins have that incredible week 1. Tank Dell's been going off. The last 2 weeks, weeks 2 and week 3, it's been Dell, Collins, and Robert Woods. Robert Woods has 25 targets this year through 3 games. He's not going away. Last 2 weeks, all 3 of their A-dots are 11 or better. Tank has had 33% of the air yard market share and over 20% of the target market share. So he's not exactly honing in on one guy, but in terms of making DFS lineups, I don't know. I'm not ready to double stack or play more than one Houston receiver. But every week, if you had Nico or Tank Dell in one of your DFS lineups, this is where you set a build rule, you're feeling pretty good about it because one of them's been hitting every week. Now, Houston, much like Tennessee, is missing offensive line starters. But the big difference between these 2 quarterbacks, obviously Tannehill, the veteran, wealth of experience, the guy's a statue now. He'll run on a couple design plays, but Stroud has that shifty pocket mobility where, he can deal with a subpar offensive line and avoid, negative plays more often than any statue quarterback could. So Stroud's working back there. 4 touchdowns, no picks through his first 3 NFL games. And boy, you can't ask for much more than that from a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. Let me just say this too, Luuch. The situation matters. The coaching staff matters. All of these things matter, right? Because they can really help to set up your career for success or set you back. And I'm going to parlay this into a little bit of Baker Mayfield talk because we've all been – I have not been a Baker Mayfield fan, but let me just say Baker looks much better in Tampa Bay than he's looked his whole career. Part of his career, he's been hurt. He's had a lot of coaches, but look at the job he's been doing now, where he's got what I would consider to be a competent offensive coordinator. So when I look at C.J. Stroud, DeMeco Ryans' defensive coach, I think we got to tip our hats off to this offensive coaching staff, putting him in a position to be successful and then allowing him to play their strengths, right? Hey, move around a little bit. We're going to give you some concepts. They went and got him enough weapons. Like Robert Woods is a seasoned veteran receiver. You put that with Nico Collins, who's kind of a mid-range guy, and then you got a young, explosive rookie. You went out and got, a reasonably veteran tight end who, while he may not be involved in the offense, he understands enough about the NFL. He's going to be a professional. Like, it's kind of a well-constructed receiver room, if you will, right? Think about some of the better receiver rooms. Like, let's just go to Miami. Tyreek's the veteran. Waddle's like the next man up. And then you've got guys like Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft who have some stability. They let Mike Gesicki go to allow Durham Smythe to come along. They've got Mostert. They've got Devin Akani, Mr. Devin. They've still got not Abdullah. My goodness, Abdullah plays for the Raiders. His name is eluding me right now. But my point is, they've got a balanced wide receiver room, a balanced group of receivers. You go to the Bills. You've got Stephon Diggs, who's the number one guy. You got Gabriel Davis. And then you've got some other guys. You've got what's the tight end there?
Dawson Knox and the young
right.
guy Dalton Kincaid.
Right. Like this is how you build. You go to the Lions. They've got Jameson Williams, who's not playing. They've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. They've got Marvin Jones, who's the veteran, right? They've got Laporta, who's the young tight end. Like, the Saints, Michael Thomas.
Pass the torch.
Right. Michael Thomas, Shaheed, Chris Olave. Just go and look at how teams build their receiving groups. This is how you do it. And so they've done that in Houston in a unique way, where their number one guy isn't actually the number one guy. They've just got a good collection of talent that balance each other out, and they're allowing Stroud to just spread the ball around. I think Stroud threw it to probably 8 or 9 guys yesterday or this past weekend. If he's going to play like that, how are you going to slow this offense down?
CJ Stroud said, you can shove your cognition tests up your you-know-what, because I'm going out there, and through 3 games, I have accumulated the 3rd most passing yards by any rookie quarterback in league history through 3 games. And by the way, we won't find out for years, but I am willing to bet all the money in my pocket here that, yes, the Tennessee Titans would have happily taken CJ Stroud at number 3 during that whole process. And I'm not saying Will Levis isn't going to work out, because I actually do believe in Will Levis, especially with the value and the side of getting him in round 2, which, this is a conversation for another time. But Mike Vrabel's an OSU guy. He knows Ryan Day well. I know the Titans were going for CJ Stroud. So big credit for Houston. They, put on that smoke before the draft, and there were books saying, well, Levis was going to. I don't know who they know in the media world or, underground, or who they know in Vegas or whatever. But they, for a pick that should have been all too obvious with CJ Stroud, they did as good a job as they could to throw out the most smoke across the league that maybe we're not taking CJ Stroud. And then it was a no-brainer. Everything appeared to be a no-brainer. It was always Stroud. And so far, so good. And as a Texans fan in the organization, you have to feel pretty freaking good after almost a month of football to CJ Stroud leading the charge.
Yeah. I mean, being able to get him and Tank Dell, I think, was good. I want to talk about the other side of this game, which is the Jaguars, who something's going on with this offense, right? Like, they just can't get enough continuity. Now, I will say this, Luuch, because I saw a lot of these games, like with Red Zone. So they were driving the ball several occasions. Jamal Agnew fumbled, and I think he fumbled twice. Like, but that's the thing. You do that, and then the game goes from 17-20 to 17-30, just like that on turnovers. And so that's another thing that happened in this game that you won't see in the score. They were in the middle of some beautiful drives, and a turnover cost them, or a bad sack cost them. And so they just haven't been able to have sustainable offensive drives. And they did the same thing with Kansas City. They did the same thing in week 1. Like, if you can't have sustainable offensive drives in the NFL, even if you're taking field goals, if you keep, and that's the thing, and I'm a field goal guy, right? Because of one reason. If you can continue to prove that you can drive and score points, your defense is going to have a better psyche. They're going to play better. Trust me, 20-9 is a lot worse than 20-0. They get a stop, you get a touchdown. It's now 20-16. You're saying, well, wait a minute. We got a shot here, right? And so that's the thing with the Jaguars. They don't have enough sustainable drives to even kick field goals right now. Like this is really rough for the Jaguars, who have Calvin Ridley, have Evan Ingram, have Travis Etienne, have Zay Jones, who I know was not playing on Sunday, have Christian Kirk, have Agnew, have Trevor Lawrence. This team is supposed to have weapons, Luuch, that are able to hang with some of the big dogs. And something's going on with this offense. They can't move the ball enough to produce enough points to win games.
I mean, you look at the box. Lawrence hit 27 of 40. I mean, 279. They put out 400 yards of offense.
But they can't sustain. Right. They don't have sustainable drives to score points. That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to make, Luuch. You can get down to the 40, but what is that getting you? Okay, you drove 40, 50 yards this drive, no points. You drove 40, 50 yards the next drive, no points. You drove 40, 40, 50, 60, 40 to 60 yards the next drive, no points. Right? It's like you got to score points to win these games. Doesn't matter if you throw for 300. Russell Wilson threw for 300. They lost 70-20. You got to score points.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. 2 trips to the red zone, that's it. So
you see what I'm saying?
Couldn't get down there to do damage. So I'm not panicking about the Jaguars. I think this could be one of the most fun divisions that maybe it wasn't expected to be a couple of weeks ago. I'm excited to see this thing play out. Let's throw it over to the Chiefs and the Bears.
This was going to be easy. Justin Fields is not looking good. I thought he was going to take a step this year. I thought this team was going to take a step. They can't do anything. And the defense is bad. And the Chiefs, Travis Kelce should be getting more and more healthy each week. And look, if the Chiefs are going to play an inferior opponent, they're going to win. Plain and simple. Bears, extremely inferior opponent. And what I was disappointed with the Bears, because I did like the Bears this week to try to keep up. Justin Fields at one point in the third quarter had 39 yards passing. 39 in a game that they were trailing. Luuch, that's a recipe for a disaster. Like, look at all these other quarterbacks that kind of had blowouts. Like, Trevor still had 260-ish. Wilson still had 300. I didn't check Tannehill or the quarterback from Washington. But my point is, most of the time when you're behind, okay, like Andy Dalton still threw for over 300. They lost 37-27. Like, if you're going to move the ball and have some situations like that, Dak and their team lost. He still had over 250. Like, that's what it has to be like, right? You can't lose by 31 points and have less than 100 yards passing. That's embarrassing. Like, something's going on here, and they better fix it real soon. Chiefs saw an inferior opponent. They did what they were supposed to do.
So much was going on this week and off the field for the Bears, and maybe there's more to the story. A lot of rumors, weird stuff. End result, defensive coordinator resigned. Alan Williams. So many more rumors. What's true, what's not, I don't know. Just weird left field stuff going on.
Justin Fields said the coaching staff is probably a part of the reason why he's not excelling this season. Then he had to talk to the media and backtrack that and say he's not blaming the coaches. It was a lot.
It was a lot. And like, what did they try to install in this offseason that, Fields kind of said he felt like more robotic and stuff like that? I mean, like, you can regress a bit, but still Fields is such a gifted runner that how does it just avalanche into flipping such a 180 like that so quickly? Like what else happened? Like how much did the Bears complicate things schematically maybe? Or, or is it just that Fields mentally can't take all of it on? Did they try to just bring it up to speed where they want it to be, and maybe Fields couldn't take all of it on? Like I'm sure one side will say one perspective and the other will back the other. But
it doesn't matter. They're awful. At the end of the day, this team is doing terribly, and they need to fix it. Or plenty of people are going to get fired here. Coaching staff, quarterback's going to be gone. Like, you know what I'm saying? I will say this. I think the Jets would welcome Justin Fields walking in the building. You get what I'm saying? Here's why I'm saying that, Luuch. We've seen Justin Fields be effective. So something's going on that's holding him back, right? Like, we're one season removed from him just being one of the most elusive and athletic quarterbacks in the league. He's not even really running as much as he was last season. So something's going on, and perhaps he needs a new home. If I'm the Jets, maybe I'm calling it up. The Bears are going to stink anyway, and maybe they can get Caleb Williams.
I mean, I know they're not the only team hoping for a Caleb Williams sighting in, 7 months from now or whatever it is. We'll see what happens. I don't think the coaching staff is the right. I'm not a believer still in what they have in Chicago. I mean, they have some pieces. They brought in DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and Roschon Johnson's good. The offensive line's bad. The defense is bad. And this is the Chiefs. Like, could some of this be Kansas City just finally really clicking and the Bears maybe not being as awful on top of the narrative-y week? Because we have a treat next week with the Broncos and Bears, and it's only a 3-point spread. The Broncos are favored by 3.
Well, both of these defenses have been bad, so we're going to see who's worse. A winner has to come out of this game.
It does. There's so much we can cover from last week. Just a ton of storylines.
I think
you have the shootout with the Chargers in Minnesota, and then obviously the Cowboys getting shocked on the road against Arizona.
Well, listen, our good friend of the podcast, Kamish, he's been pretty high on the Arizona Cardinals this season. Like, he's talked about the fact that they play hard. This team isn't just rolling over to, like, tank for Caleb Williams. Like, this team's playing hard. And I think it showed up yesterday with Dallas coming to town. And so I wasn't as shocked as everybody else to see the Cowboys lose. I think I was more shocked to see them lose in this fashion. But here's the thing. The Cardinals could easily be 2-1. Right? Like, easily.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like, they could have beat the Giants. The Giants just didn't roll over. But they stunned the Giants. So I blame the Cardinals they lost that game. They should have won that game easily. The Giants just kept fighting back. But generally speaking, Cardinals have been playing hard. So I'm not as shocked as probably everybody else with the Cowboys losing that game.
It's early in the season. Every team has one of these games, typically. So we'll see. But yeah, kudos to Arizona. Josh Dobbs doing his thing. Got my guy Michael Wilson involved a little bit here. And before we transition over to the look ahead, Minnesota is one of those 0-3 teams. So they're on the wrong end of those one-score games so far. That schedule's pretty soft now, and that division is still pretty winnable. And, Detroit getting another W, which is big for them. But I don't think they're selling and panicking at this moment. If you add another L onto that record in a week from now, maybe we start to have a different conversation. With Kirk Cousins' contract being up, I'm sure you've seen things floated around already, maybe a bit prematurely. But with how soft the NFC was expected to be, heading into the season in a division that I still think is winnable. Still a ton of divisional games. Those standings will still flip in a hurry. I think you give the Vikings 2 more weeks and you see what happens, at least at minimum.
Yeah, I mean they've got. So I think the Vikings to me are a good look ahead team this week because they're coming to town to play my Panthers, and Andy Dalton will be at quarterback this week because they've confirmed that Bryce Young is going to be out at least 3 weeks. And here's my thing: if the Panthers start winning football games, I think that ankle injuries. Oh, he's still a little aggravated. We'll keep him out an extra week, right? The Panthers didn't win yesterday, but what I did say was this offense would look better, and trust me, it did. The offense looked much better. Andy Dalton's a veteran quarterback. This game is probably going to be another shootout this week. So from a fantasy perspective, Luuch, I like the Vikings, but I like the Panthers. Andy Dalton should still be fairly cheap. I don't think Adam Thielen is going to be as cheap as he came out with a nuke target game. And he should still, have more targets again this week. This should be another game for fantasy goodness. But we'll have to see where the ownership is and see if it becomes more popular due to the fact that, the Panthers are on the other side. But the Vikings could absolutely win this game and they could absolutely lose this game. But I'm with you. I think, I think this team is explosive, but it doesn't matter if you're explosive if your defense can't stop a common cold. So this is a weird team. Because they can score, they just can't stop anyone. You get what I'm saying? If they can outscore you, they'll win. But I don't think they're going to be able to do that too often because their defense allows the other offenses to score just as many points as they do.
It wasn't much different than last year.
Yeah,
they had 1 or 2 more of those splash variance plays go their way here and there, skirting away with a win here or there. They're going to put up points. They can't run the ball, and I'm not sure Cam Akers is going to solve the offensive line issue either, but he's another weapon. Yeah, this game is a good place to start. Do you expect Bryce Young to sit out for week 4?
Yes, I do. I don't think – so that was week 2. No, that was week 3. He's not going to be back week 4. I think he possibly comes back week 5. But once again, if this offense is coming along, I don't think he's back. I don't know if we see Bryce until week 6. Because I think the report was, if I'm not mistaken, and please forgive me, folks, if I'm incorrect here, but when I was reading the report, and I feel like they said he was going to be out at least 2 to 3 weeks, which means he's definitely not playing this week. Definitely. And possibly next week.
I mean, Carolina moved the ball pretty well with Andy Dalton.
Well, they should have. The guy's a veteran.
Kind of against another Swiss cheese Vikings-like defense in the secondary.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a competitive football game. And Andy Dalton will catch buzz in the industry somewhere with this game environment at his cheap price. And
I was on him last week. I was on this offense last week. So, yeah, this offense should have some traction. Sorry to interrupt you there, Luuch.
No, you're good. I mean, he's not going to give you a 30-point ceiling, but some of his skill players, such as Thielen, clearly they have rapport. And some of that player speak in the media this week with Thielen talking up Dalton. Thielen had a strong week last week, and he came back and looked even better. He looks like the key cog in that offense right now.
Yeah.
And would you put Adam Thielen's stock higher with Andy Dalton than Bryce Young right now for fantasy?
Right now, yes. Absolutely. And I said this on the Blitz show last week, Luuch. Like, I don't dislike Bryce Young. He's the future. But we don't have a scrub, and hear me out now. We don't have a scrub backup quarterback. Andy Dalton was a bona fide starter in this league for 7 or 8 years with A.J. Green. Like, I think we forget that. His Cincinnati days aren't that far removed, right? I know he was with the Saints and I know he was with the Cowboys, but listen, this guy could be a starter in this league. I'll tell you this. Let me just say this. If Andy Dalton was with the Jets right now, we think the Jets still had a shot. at getting into the playoffs. We would. Garrett Wilson would get the ball more. The tight ends would get the ball more. The running backs they'd have an offense that could move the football. You get what I'm saying? The only reason Andy Dalton isn't in Cincinnati right now is they just couldn't win football games. They turned over the coaching staff and they brought in a new era with Joe Burrow. The AJ Green era left. The T. Higgins era came in. The Tyler Boyd era came in. The Jamar Chase era came in. The Joe Burrow era came in. The Joe Mixon era. It's a whole new regime. But Andy Dalton could be a starter in this league. But guess what? He's now being paid great money to be a backup quarterback. He's just got to mentor these young guys, help them get ready, right? And then when he's called upon, he gets to play. So he's kind of got the best of both worlds now, Luuch. He's been the star. He's been one of the franchise pieces. And now he gets to live out his life. Doesn't have to take all those hits on his body season to season to season. And he gets paid more money as an elite backup quarterback. Because I would consider Andy Dalton an elite backup quarterback, right? Like a guy that, okay, your quarterback gets hurt, he comes in. It's not much drop off. He's an elite backup quarterback, and he's going to get paid elite backup quarterback money. This is great for Andy Dalton. This is great.
Yeah, I would have interest in Adam Thielen unless his projected ownership gets out of control. Very cheap.
Another 300-yard game will be incoming or close to it for Dalton this week.
On the flip side, what do you think Cam Akers' involvement is going to be? I mean, I would be shocked if he didn't dress after being inactive shortly after being traded to Minnesota. Could this just be an ugly split, hard to figure out? Probably a large field tournament thing if you want some of that Minnesota backfield. You set a build rule to obviously play just one of them because Madison and Cam Akers is 4,900 on DK. I mean, they're priced cheaply enough that one touchdown and 40 yards and maybe a couple catches puts them in a pretty good spot from their price points. So is this backfield just going to be a mess?
I don't know if it's going to be a mess, but I think that's the way you approach it. Lean into the uncertainty and play them both, but you're not going to play them both together. Maybe you play Madison. This is just an example. I haven't 70 builds yet. It's just Tuesday. But as an example, Luuch, maybe you run Madison at 20%. You run Akers at 10%. As an example, Madison is still the lead back until they tell us he's not, right? So I think that's the way you approach this situation, and get exposure to both of them with the offense and go from there.
Yeah, obviously Jefferson, there's a bit of an injury scare late in that game. He was just cramping up though. They're just throwing the ball at an insane rate right now. They want to establish a ground game, and I think they need to if they want to be competitive. But for fantasy football purposes, Kirk airing it out to all of the weapons has been fantastic for Osborne, Addison in most games, Hawkinson in most games. Jefferson, they've all had ceiling kind of performances at their price point so far. But if they want to win, if we're talking real football, they're going to have to run the ball a little bit and be effective. And I think that's part of the Akers, maybe there's a spark there. There was some weird, speculative, coach speak from different media outlets about, why the Rams were giving up on Cam Akers. And I feel like he's been rumored to be on the trade block for more than a season now. And I don't know. I mean, if there are issues off the field, if it's just, immature, I don't know what it is, then maybe it's still Madison's backfield. But I think eventually it'll probably be more of like a 50-50 situational split. Both guys have dealt with injuries, though. So if we're talking season long or even week to week in DFS, if one guy's out, you still got to consider the other one. I mean, Madison played pretty well. He got dinged up and came back into that game. Granted, the Chargers do not stop the run either, but still, Minnesota threw the ball a lot. And Kirk Cousins is playing for a contract, Chief. So if I'm him, I'm audibling out of whatever run they call anyway, and I'm throwing the football.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm with you 100%. It feels like we're already in the week ahead now. So
yep.
I figure we might as well just stay there. I guess I'm going to pose a question to you, Luuch. What's kind of your favorite real life game this week? And then what's kind of your favorite early target for fantasy? I've got my favorite real life game that I actually want to watch, and then I've got one for fantasy. And I think it's going to be similar to last week, where we all kind of gather around one or two games, which I did build very differently this week because I was heavy Dolphins, heavy Texans. But I think there's one or two games in particular that people are going to be very interested in this week. I'm just interested to see kind of where you land right now.
Well, Miami Buffalo is going to be fascinating, and we talked about that a little bit. I think we might see some over ownership on the Miami side, and I think Buffalo's pass D is pretty good. So I think there's an immense difference between Buffalo's pass defense and Denver's pass defense, or just in general.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I think that one's interesting. My favorite real life game, where I'm hoping to find out more information about who these teams are, is Baltimore and Cleveland.
Great. So we're on the same page there. I think we're pretty much thinking along the same lines. I think that's my favorite real life game of the week. I want to see if the Ravens or Browns are for real. And it feels to me like the way Deshaun played last week, and without all of the running backs at their disposal, like the Ravens, it looks like Lamar's going to be really cranking up the rushing attempts again, right? And if Deshaun's back on his passing game, this should be a very unique game. Should be a tough game as a division game, so I'm with you. I think from a fantasy perspective, and for me, I've been trying to kind of go off the board, building a lot more this year. I think Dolphins-Bills are going to garner a lot of ownership, like you said. Vikings-Panthers are probably going to garner a lot of ownership, like you said. I'm going to go back to two teams with really bad defense, and that's Bears-Broncos. Like, there's got to be some fantasy goodness in this game. As it stands right now, I feel like I just want to lean on Russell Wilson again in this passing attack, because once again, Russ threw for 300. They just couldn't put it in the end zone enough. I think after this massive butt kicking that they had, the points will show up this week. Two bad defenses. I think the points will be there.
I think we're going to see Marvin Mims' role expand, and they have to keep expanding it. And I want to get ahead of the mega chalk Marvin Mims party whenever that is. And for some reason, he's just been making big play after big play. If he's sub 10% this week at 4,500 or what, I'll look it up. I don't know what he is. I'll check in a second. But I think he's going to keep making plays. He was one of my favorite best ball targets in the offseason, and that Bears defense has been so bad. And Marvin Mims is 3,900. Good Lord. So he might be my favorite tournament, cheap play upside kind of guy. But just getting back to the Cleveland Baltimore game, I want to see that Browns defensive front against a mobile quarterback. I want to see how much a mobile quarterback can, excel against that front seven of Cleveland. And I want to see how they play it defensively. Jim Schwartz got those boys dialed up. It's unreal. So I want to see this mobile quarterback, Todd Monken offense against this Cleveland defense. And that Ravens secondary is susceptible to the pass. So we'll see if Deshaun Watson, if he's really trending, or if it was more of a product of the Tennessee, funnel, where this is going to be a very telling game. But let's backtrack once more and just tie that Baltimore game with the Colts. Talk to me about the Colts with Minshew Mania, who never seems to go away.
Yeah, I think in terms of that particular game, the Ravens did have a shot late to close the game, but of course, Justin Tucker missed a 61 to 63 yard field goal, I think it was, and that's really what forced it in the overtime. I think what was disappointing for me in this particular game is I don't think I still don't think Lamar is airing it out enough. Like, and I know he's down, a weapon in Odell Beckham, but Zay Flowers had 8 catches for 48 yards. Like, that number should be bumped up tremendously. When we're talking about Zay Flowers, this is a guy that I think we're expecting to have some field stretching ability, some big play ability. 8 catches for 48 yards, I think, is just too low for the type of output they're going to need to win some of these games. Nelson Aguilar, 4 for 39. Mark Andrews, 4 for 35. Like, I think we've got to see Lamar push the ball down the field a little bit more. We can't live in this short to intermediate range every game. And so, to me, that's the big thing with this game. Now, listen, kudos to the Colts. Gardner Minshew, 27 for 44, 277. Zach Moss, 30 totes, not touches, carries, folks, for 122, and also threw in 2 catches for 23 yards and a touchdown. Michael Pittman, 9 catches for 77 yards. I don't know if you saw any highlights, Luuch, but had a big-time reception down the field and had to hang on to it late in that game. Josh Downs, another emerging young receiver, 8 catches for 57. And, of course, we had Alec Pierce here, 3 for 43. Zaire Franklin, 11 tackles. Like this, they had to earn this game. And being able to push it to overtime, it was a back and forth in overtime. Baltimore's offense could not get rolling. And I think we've kind of seen that the past couple weeks. Like, Baltimore's offense isn't blowing the top off anyone right now. And Lamar missing that running back. He did have the rushing attempts this week, 14 for 101. Action Jackson is still Action Jackson. But I think we need to see Lamar dial up the passing yards a little bit more if they're going to get out of this division.
Yeah, and the Colts brought in Trey Sermon, who saw 20% of the snaps off the get-go. That's because in week 2, Zach Moss played 98% of the snaps. Still saw 76% of the snaps. So basically, whenever he was on the field, he was touching the ball. Pretty much, all jokes aside. At least one out of every 2 plays. And he's only a bump over 6K. John Taylor's not back yet. We're going to find out more about who the Rams are defensively on Monday Night Football, because we're recording pretty early on Monday here. But if you're going to give me a guy with that much opportunity, I'm not sure I care who the defense is with Zach Moss. And if the Rams are able to hold Cincinnati in check, maybe the public is a little afraid to click that Zach Moss button. I mean, it doesn't feel great. It's still Zach Moss, but opportunity keeps knocking in big waves, and they're featuring him. They are featuring him and Michael Pittman. It doesn't matter who is at quarterback, and thank God somebody's finally featuring Michael Pittman.
Yeah, and Zach Moss. Like, Luuch, here's the thing. Like, I feel like some of these running backs that I've known from college, sometimes they just get a bad end of the stick. Like, Zach Moss was really good in college at Utah. Really good. But he gets drafted to Buffalo. Devin Singletary's already there. They're in this weird split. And he just doesn't get to materialize the talent that he was shown in college. Even Devin Singletary was kind of stuck there in Buffalo. Like, and now he's in Houston behind Dameon Pierce. So he's kind of stuck there. I think we saw the same thing with not Dearness Johnson, Duke Johnson, right? Just kind of stuck behind guys, and Zach Moss has got an opportunity. We know that he would have been stuck if their top running back option didn't sit out. So he's getting an opportunity. He's taking advantage of it, and so is Gardner Minshew with Richardson out. This is why he gets paid dollars to be a backup quarterback, right? Like, these guys, like, and I'm kind of happy for Gardner Minshew because he's getting to play, and sometimes these guys, like, he's now going to be an elite backup quarterback, a guy that can come in, control the game for you, push the ball a little bit. So kudos to the Colts for assembling a pretty good roster.
Yeah, this might be kind of a GPP look, right? I mean, we talked about a couple of games that we think people are going to flock to. Like, now that Zach Moss isn't in the 4K range or even the 5K range, people going to want to click that button? I don't know. If the Rams hold Cincy in check, I don't know. I still think he'll might float around in that 12 to 15% ownership, which isn't going to kill you in NFL DFS. So if you love the volume, then I think you stick with Zach Moss. I think that's interesting, and we'll find out more about the Rams on.
I think, and I'm with you. I think we'll know. Excuse me. I think we'll know a lot more about the Rams once we get the final result from Monday night. So we are recording this show, Monday. So once we get the final results, I think we'll know a lot more. I will say Puka Nacua is only 6,700 in that game. And I'm saying only because of the massive targets he's been receiving. We'll see if the targets continue to trend up. From a fantasy perspective, we do have, once again, Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill at the top of the list. I do think this Vegas Chargers game is interesting. We saw Devontae get 13 targets on Monday night. On Sunday night. 20 targets, Luuch. 13 receptions for 172 and 2. That's now in the elite category, and he's 8K. Like, if he's going to get that type of volume versus Jefferson versus Hill, he's big time in the conversation against this Chargers defense, who hasn't been able to stop anyone either. And let me not forget about Jacoby Myers, who was back yesterday. He's going to get the targets as well, and he's 5,500, Luuch. This could be a sneaky spot for the Raiders' passing attack. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I'm saying this is a sneaky spot for Garoppolo and those two pass catchers.
I don't know if it's going to be as sneaky as we think it is. I think it'll carry ownership, especially with the unfortunate Mike Williams injury. We learned of Monday morning. Looks like he's probably done for the year.
Yeah, so they said he's done for the year. So Josh Palmer is going to get big time ownership this week. What do you say?
Yeah, but also just don't overthink Keenan Allen for your cash builds, right?
Oh no. I mean, Keenan Allen's never overlooked. Like, I mean, come on.
As long as he's healthy. And I mean, the elephant in the room for this game is, are we going to get Austin Eckler back or not? That's another thing. Josh Kelly coming off another dud. If Eckler's out, no one's going to go back to Josh Kelly. It's like fool me 3 times, shame on me kind of thing. I mean, in that game environment for tournaments, like, you got to put that recency biases. I mean, I know it's not recency bias.
Keenan Allen is 7,900. This is Luuch. If this game does, gosh, I'm so sorry I interrupted you, Luuch, but
you're good.
Keenan Allen is 7,900. Devontae Adams is 8K. I'm building right now live on the show. Jacoby Myers is 5,500, and Joshua Palmer is 4K. Luuch, I can comfortably stack this whole game with these receivers. I'm saying, and if I throw in Jimmy Garoppolo, who's a lot cheaper, he's 5,300. I plug in a defense of my choice. Let's see, who do I want to plug in at defense? Heck, I'm just going to throw in Arizona just because they're 2,200. That gives me 5,700 left to build. I can throw in a random tight end and do all of those things, Luuch, and be perfectly fine. Heck, I could even just throw in Gerald Everett just because he's in the game. Yeah, and that's maybe overkill with some of the pass catchers, but my point is, you might be right. It's very easy to get the passing game of both sides of this because of those injuries, and Palmer at 4K, you might be onto something, but let's see where the ownership shakes out.
Yeah, it might be the optimizers might, they're going to project much better without Mike Williams and maybe without Austin Eckler. And with those two circumstances, instead of playing the guessing game of where the volume is going to go and taking a chance, they might be more popular than we think, but doesn't make them bad plays. Like, that game should be screaming points. And
so this might be a good week then, because if that game's going to get ownership, and then we're probably anticipating Vikings-Panthers getting ownership. We're probably anticipating Dolphins-Bills getting ownership. All of these games can't get all the ownership. So this could be a good week to just kind of figure out where the ownership is, and then go to this game or go to that game or mix and match. You know what I mean? This could be a good week.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, Josh Jacobs, another dud. Everyone's going to play the receivers in this game. I think if you're multi-entering, like, this is if Josh Jacobs or Josh Kelly are going to actually do the thing, this is the game environment where it's this game or no game.
Yeah, fast track. On the fast track.
I would build with those running backs and not play anybody else from those games in those lineups. And then when I want, like, you can stack with running back for sure, like running back, receiver, court, whatever. Like it works. It does. It works sometimes. Like people win like that sometimes. But just I'm thinking they're going to be like closer to like 10% own kind of thing, because everyone's going to go with the pass catchers in that game and running backs elsewhere. That maybe I keep Josh Jacobs without Devontae Adams, and that way maybe I keep Josh Kelly without Keenan Allen. So you're still getting a piece of that game environment, but with with different passing stacks in case the running backs, touchdowns are so variant. Keenan Allen can get tackled at the 2 twice, and there's 2 Josh Kelly dump-ins. He has 60 total yards, but he scores twice, and he's at 18 points.
Yeah, absolutely. I give it 100%.
So that's an interesting game, and I think here I think might be the real. I don't know. I mean, like, if we're thinking those games are priorities and they kind of stuck out to us, like, I want to see what Joe Burrow looks like, because I want to see Cincinnati against this Tennessee defense who's gonna force Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to get targets.
Yeah,
like that's just absolutely. Tennessee's not going to change who they are. They're gonna shut down Joe Mixon and make the Bengals pass. Will the Bengals be efficient? I don't know. Will Joe Burrow look good? I don't know. We haven't even seen him play Monday night yet. But if there's going to be a whopping amount of volume for these Bengals receivers in a game environment that like the public knows Tennessee's defense is pretty good. It's just are they going to sustain drives to make the game environment healthy? I don't know. But I do know that those receivers are going to garner targets because of the way the Titans funnel the defense. And I think this is a good Bengals receiver week. I think that's the tournament play. And I'm coming out here as a Titans fan. I'm telling you, like I'm playing some Bengals. Even if maybe I want Burrow to look terrible or not even start this week, because then there'll be less people on them. And I don't care who the quarterback is. With the way Tennessee plays schematically, the opportunities will be there for the receiver in that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
I mean, it doesn't feel great, but T. Higgins had a game in week 2. Like, Jamar hasn't really done much yet, but
yeah,
it's crunch time for Cincinnati too. 0-2 heading into week 3 here, and be a lot of pressure on a lot of people in that game, hypothetically, in about a week.
Absolutely, my brother.
You want to wrap it up? Should we go into story time / GPP food of the day? What do you got for me?
So, GPP food of the day. We're coming in here. I want to give a shout out to my local. So here where I live, I'm in the coastal area on the East Coast, near the beach, and so we have a lot of what we call crab houses here, Luuch. A lot of crab houses. Happy crab, juicy crab, red crab, stuff like that. And so I'm not a big crab eater in terms of like crab legs and stuff. That's not like my favorite. But I do love scallops. I love shrimp. I love the boiled eggs. I love the potatoes. I love the corn. I love those bags. And Luuch, one of our local crab houses, finally has it where you can get scallops in the bag. My goodness. And you get to choose your flavor. My favorite flavor, Luuch, that I've discovered is lemon pepper, garlic, mild. Lemon pepper, garlic, mild. Luuch, it's incredible. The flavor is just so explosive. So I would encourage everyone, if you have a local crab house. Now I'm here in Charleston, and so crab bags probably aren't as prevalent in all areas of the country. I understand that. But if you're by a place that you can get scallops, sausage, corn, potatoes, baby red potatoes, all in a flavorful sauce, Luuch, go check it out. It'll bless your life.
I recently moved to the Lehigh Valley. Again, technically, but I'm here for good now in Pennsylvania. I went to a place. If anyone's in the Lehigh Valley area or driving through, check out the Tavern on Liberty. It's right next to some D2 college football where the school Muhlenberg is. So you can catch some football, catch some food. It's kind of a dive, Tavern on Liberty, but I love a good dive. It's like a nice dive. But they had a ton of wing flavors. I never heard of this one anywhere. It was their wing of the month. The sauce was vanilla root beer barbecue.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was something different. Vanilla root beer barbecue. It was interesting. So that was a good little appetizer feast before I saw Penn State take care of business against Iowa. Man, it's been a tough couple of days for football in Colorado between the Broncos and the Buffaloes, man. Tough couple of days.
Yes. I like that. Vanilla root beer barbecue.
Yeah, something different. It was good. I thought it would be like way too sweet, but it was a pretty good consistency.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'll find that where I am, but if I can find me a spot that's got something similar, I'll check it out.
Yeah. Probably the barbecue y'all have down there. See, I said y'all. Yeah. I threw the y'all in there because I tried to be authentic. But you guys have some real barbecue down there. Oh, yeah. One of my good friends lives in Charleston. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I'm not going to come here and tout barbecue in the North. There's one place up in the Northeast in New York City, Hometown Barbecue. New York City is about one of the only places in the Northeast where you can find some real.
Yeah, because people from here move up there and start a restaurant.
Authenticity. Yes. Yeah. So other than that, I'm going to leave the barbecue talk for your neck of the woods. I know you got me one up no matter what I talk about up there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, my uncles taught me how to grill and barbecue. And listen, I've got my own special lemon pepper barbecue that I do with chicken and stuff like that. Trust me, it's a family hit. So, lemon pepper barbecue is actually kind of my specialty. And
I'm thinking about what's your opinion? And if anyone's listening, DM me. I'm thinking about getting one of those flat top Blackstones for the house. Have you used one? Or
I've heard it's really good. For those of you that are in the cast iron skillets, if you've got some of those, and I've got some of those. If you got some of those, then you know the deal. It's really good.
It's not like, it's not an OG grill, but I kind of like the idea of making some breakfast on it on the weekends, and you have the flat top,
Yeah.
Waking up early before the games and just putting a smorgasbord on and getting ready to start the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm undecided if I want to go more traditional or get the flat top, so we'll see. Anyway, let's get going. Where can the people find you, Chief?
At Chief Justice 06 on Twitter and on RotoGrinders.com. So, come hang out, and you find me in the prop shop in the RotoGrinders Discord. So I'm all over the place. In football season, we've got content rolling. I'm on the Sunday Showdown show every Sunday and on the Blitz every Saturday. So trust me, you can get my thoughts. And I've been filling in even on Crunch Time a little bit here recently for the main slate on Sunday, talking through some things. And so if you were able to catch some of my thoughts, hopefully you made some money, because we definitely were on Miami and Houston. So there you have it.
We will catch you guys next week. We have 2 more Monday night games we have to digest. I don't know why they keep doing this to us. Not sure.
This is the last week, I think. Next week is just one game.
Yeah. Do they start London next week? Did we omit that, or is that in 2 weeks from now? Hold up, because we were looking at the main slate.
I think it's in 2 weeks. Ravens Titans 9:30 in the morning.
No, Atlanta Jacksonville. October 1st is Sunday. Atlanta Jacksonville.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's right. And they're going to do the Toy Story. They're going to do the Toy Story overlay on that game.
I feel so stupid. But now, wow. So I thought we were done. Now on another 30 seconds, because now you have Jacksonville looking like straight crap for 2 weeks. Now they got to travel to another country.
Well, the Jaguars are they typically win these London games. So let's just hand it to them for novelty's sake.
Wow. Yeah, you probably find the most Jaguars jerseys in the UK.
Yeah,
I guess.
absolutely. They
How
go
many
every
times?
year.
Yeah, you're looking for a
Every
Jimmy
year.
Smith or a Fred Taylor jersey. It's probably in the UK somewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, I'm done. I swear. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, for another week of Food for Thought. That's the Chief. I'm the Luuch. We'll catch you next week. Good luck, everybody. Have a great week.